What is going on, Secondhand Talent family? It is your boy Steiner here with another episode of Secondhand Talent. Well, thank you, Tenacious Toys, for the desk candy, and thank you to Luke Chu for the lo-fi, our featured toy of the season, and thank you very, very much to our guest this week, Ellis Godard, Executive Director of Mockingbird Foundation, returning to the show for his second time. Ellis, welcome back to the show.
Good to see you, brother. Things are looking great.
Thank you so much. Now, Ellis, you were on in season 1, and you know well that Secondhand Talent is the place where we shine the spotlight on the people who shine the spotlights, and we interview the rest of the villagers in the village of live music, everyone that's not on stage, and sometimes the ones that are. And, you know, at the time of this airing, you know, we're in season 5 now, on our way to 100 episodes. In the 2.5 years from the time of this airing, since our first interview or interaction about the podcast, my question to you, really more so knowing, rather than what did Secondhand Talent mean to you the first time you heard it, does the definition that I just gave, you know, what I believe Secondhand Talent to be, what I hope it conveys as, does that still ring true?
Yeah, absolutely, man. The idea that it's those obvious names we know and all the ones that we don't know who are part of that structure. You've had some amazing people and more coming. And so it's been an amazing roster and experience and catalog of documenting and investigating and understanding and exploring that world and those people and those connections. And you've had the opportunity and the generosity and the kindness to extend that and include some of the nonprofits that are in that sphere that are maybe sort of secondhand to the music and the art world itself. And I am secondhand in one of those nonprofits. So I'm honored to be here and be a part of that experiment or exploration or journalism or whatever we're calling this.
Yeah, you know, call it what you like. It doesn't matter. Just all that matters is what we're doing, and I appreciate that. And it is really, I do have to say, it is a beautiful thing to me that I have a platform where I have the opportunity to highlight organizations like Mockingbird Foundation, like Backline. Check out backline.care, like Divided Sky Foundation. Please go check out Divided Sky Foundation. And of course, Mockingbird Foundation. Go to mbird.org and go check them out. All the links are going to be in the description, and we're going to talk all about what it is. Just, you know, so our if any listeners who haven't heard the last time Ellis was on the show, they can learn a little bit about it. But it really is special to me to bring that spotlight to organizations that are also doing that hard work on the ground to really, I believe, in a firsthand manner, keep the secondhand talent healthy. I mean, it's so important, the work that all of those respective organizations are doing, as well as others like Water Wheel and some other fan run charities and communities. But those three in particular, you know, are near and dear to me, especially Mockingbird Foundation. And it's a privilege, really, to be able to show the world that this isn't just about the health of the experience, it's about the health of the people who put on the experience too.
Right.
And part of
and it helps them out because there are people who, sort of old school people who you've brought back and given sunlight to some younger folks and some newer folks who might not be aware of their past work. And there are people behind the scenes who don't get the attention they deserve. And there are names that you and I know who many others haven't been exposed to, that you've given an opportunity to communicate back and sort of identify themselves and position them in their world. And that helps us understand what it is that happens and understands the reality of backstage and around the stage and in the van and the home office and the planning and the catering and everything that happens with people. And it gives those people a leg up because they've gotten, I think in many cases, the righteous, and I don't mean to put myself in this basket, the appreciation, like Divided Sky and some of these others, the appreciation and the acknowledgement that they need for the important work they do.
Yeah, that is part of it. And Divide Sky and Backline, are incredible. They do different things and they're each incredibly important. And Mockingbird is incredibly important as well in what they do. One of the big messages of the show, and we talked about it a little bit last time you were on, and we've talked about it a lot on the show since then. One of the big values of the show, we talk about bringing some older heads on, and kind of bringing them back to the new generation. This season we were lucky. We're lucky to have on people like Christopher Thorne from Blind Melon, Dave Eckenberg, who was one of the people who did Chiron editing and did the lettering for Star Trek The Next Generation and edited the Dr. Feelgood video by Motley Crue to save it for air on MTV. And it's just incredible. I feel incredibly blessed to have this platform where I get to have these conversations. Susanna Millman, photographer of the Grateful Dead, Jerry walked her down the aisle. Getting to hear her tell the story of how that came into being is just there's nothing like it. But one of the big messages of the show, kind of getting back to what I was saying, is that it's always been very much that the love never began with us. It came from the generation before that came from the generation before. And it's our job to pass it down, not just pass it down to the generation next, but to pass it down with the understanding that it's also your job to pass it down when it's your turn. Like it's your turn to pass it along ultimately there as well. And that starts with education. And one of the reasons I hold, forgetting the fact that I'm a teacher, but one of the reasons I hold Mockingbird in such esteem is, we'll let the people know. What does Mockingbird do?
Yeah, all volunteer, originally started by Fish fans, and we fundraise for music education for kids. In a nutshell.
Well, that's exactly it. And as of, we're recording this now in 2025. I think this is also going to air in 2025. Since its inception and since I think the initial grants were in 2002 or 2003, somewhere around there.
Yeah, somewhere in there, yeah.
And since then,
two or three small ones, like a couple $1,000.
But here's the thing. At this point, Mockingbird has approved grants for all 50 states.
Yeah.
And a lot of areas and a lot of states don't have access to any resources or are in areas where a few hundred or a few $1,000s could actually go a really long way, especially if, and this is something kind of really inherent in music education, but secondhand instruments. And being able to secure kind of a good brokerage on those to get them to be repurposed for educational use, like that's huge.
Yeah, well, instruments and there's so many things that need to be funded: staffing and equipment, music stands, sheet music, risers, because a choir doesn't work if everybody's flat. PA systems and support, and all the recording studio. We've supported all kinds of different things that are necessary for those processes to happen. The sort of incubator, it's not just you teach kids music. They're in a marching band or an orchestra, a jazz band, or some organized structure that has sort of an event and a ritual and a system and a process and an organization and a pattern. And that's what gets the kids interested and keeps them interested and develops the skills when they get out of there. And that's not just secondhand sax with a reed, and reeds are expensive. I had kids who played an oboe and a bassoon, so the double reeds, they're especially expensive, right? And so, but it's not just the instruments. There's this, again, sort of secondhand talenty other stuff that goes around that that we've been thrilled to support, as you say, in out of the way places in Western Kentucky and Eastern Tennessee and Alaska, in all 50 states. 716 grants, about 2.6 million so far, and I think we'll hit 3 million within a couple of years.
Which is, just incredible. And, we mentioned also last time you were on the show, I have friends who have directly been impacted by some of those grants in the state of Illinois. And it's something that, we could expound so much on the amount of secondhand talent that's required just in a high school music class or a college music class, like the amount of things that are involved. Like, folks don't understand, like, as much that goes into a concert can go into any choir, any band, any arrangement, any sort of mixture of those things. And to be able to provide access or resources or just assistance in a tangible way in areas, even in more well-known states, let's say, but in the further reaches of them, and remind people in those areas that they are not forgotten by organizations like Mockingbird, I think is important in and of itself.
And I should say, we've done grants in Chicago and in New York, and of course, all the big cities. We're not just in rural areas, but there are forgotten entities there. This golf tournament we've got coming up, the 10th annual golf tournament, will be a fundraiser for Pasadena Rosebud Academy, which burned down in the recent LA fires. There are other schools in the Malibu area that are probably better insured, and funding is different because the socioeconomic status basis is different. The property tax base is different. There are schools in the Pasadena, Altadena area that have gotten hundreds of thousands. One place, I think, they've gotten some support, which is fantastic. And I don't mean to demean that, but then there's some schools that can't cover their GoFundMe to get back up and running. And so we have been honored to find people. We do grants in emergencies. We are kind of dark, but when hurricanes or floods or wildfires or something happen, it's not opportunistic except in the sense that we're looking for an excuse to help, and we're looking for a school that got hit. We're on the phone after things slow down to say, was your music program affected? We'd like to reach out. We do a grant in every city that Fish performs in, partly because we understand we have an impact on the local community, and some of those are out of the way places. It's not whitewashing, offsetting, but we're trying to come full circle and say, hey, we appreciate you, and we want to bring music back full circle, the way Trey put it when he talked to me one time. So, we've been able to do good things in need in lots of places that are small dollars. Our max grant is $10,000. So I love what Save the Music does, and Mr. Holland's Opus, and a number of larger foundations that are able to give $1 million grants and tons, and that's a lot of programs wouldn't survive, much less succeed without that. But we're filling in some gaps and some niches and some cracks that aren't on their radar, and sometimes just wouldn't get the attention elsewhere that they deserve. There's a bigger ROI, right? Donate to the Mockingbird. We have no staff. We have no office. We have almost no assets. We got, some postage, an accountant, because we got to pay taxes. But almost everything, almost every bit of every dollar is going to programs genuinely in need, and that dollar makes a difference. So anyway.
It absolutely does. I mean, and folks, if you don't know, there is a charity option on PayPal when you check out, and you can select a charity to donate $1 to. And mine is Mockingbird. I have it automatically set to my PayPal account. So every time I make a purchase, I send $1 to Mockingbird. And the beautiful thing about that is that I know exactly where that dollar is going.
That's much appreciated. Yeah.
But it's not something that can be said for every charity, really, or every nonprofit. Sometimes you send in, charity with air quotes there, but you don't really know where your dollar is going. With somewhere like Backline or Mockingbird or Divided Sky, you know exactly where your funds are headed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and some of those you could see the important, all of those you can see the important work that they're doing. And I should say there's an option on eBay. Some of the one biggest online marketer we don't have to name used to have a thing that was sort of endemic to their system. And we have all sorts of people who, as part of their the payroll process for their job, donate 10, 30, $100 a month, and we just get a check from sort of their corporation through a third hand thing. So anybody who's employed with a large corporation, check it out, whether you have that option.
And sometimes there will be corporate matching where, like,
yeah,
if you designate
absolutely.
a charity, like the company will actually go ahead and like match up to a certain percentage or match. Sometimes some companies match dollar for dollar depending on where
Yeah,
you're at or
exactly.
what the
Yeah.
organization is. And,
Yeah,
you
we've got
know,
a guy who he donates $30 a month. The company matches $30 a month. $60 a month over 6-7 years has been an amazing. I mean, that's a full grant, right? So anyway,
absolutely.
the math is
The
good.
maths.
Yeah, it does. I
The
checked it
math
out.
the maths. Like, it's like, I'm not a math guy, but I'm pretty sure the maths. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
well, and that kind of leads me to my next question. You know, being kind of born out of the zeitgeist that Fish had created up to that point, just for the sake of the folks who haven't seen the previous interview, what was the impetus for creating Mockingbird, and why that name? I know why, but I'd like
Right.
to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll give the secondhand length nutshell, which is that there started to be an online, initially an email group, fish.net, of it was 100 people and then 300 people and people all over the country on this new fancy exciting thing called the internet. You could get sort of like mail
Ooh,
in your mailbox, but it came on your computer screen, and it was fascinating, all of the things you could do, and only text, no images, no pictures, except constructed with sort of keyboard characters. But despite it's like pre-image Twitter or something, despite the textual limitations of the interactions, people sort of build a small community. And we're developing resources documenting the fish world, a set list collection, which was initially called the Helping Friendly Book, after an element in a fish saga, a book that purports to contain all of the known information in the universe and keeps the lizards, the people in this universe, happy and
the
healthy and
secrets
at
of
peace.
the secrets of joy and never-ending splendor.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And we had, a frequently asked questions file and a few others. At several points, those sort of fell in my lap, and I was the guy with the finger in the dike holding the dam from breaking. But at some point, the set list thing got big enough and interesting enough that there were people printing it and selling it in parking lots. And we decided, okay, we need to protect this IP, because in that saga, there is a character who steals the Helping Friendly book and keeps it in the hands of avarice and greed. Right. And there were people
Wilson,
exactly. There were people profiting off this
Wilson.
volunteer work. So we decided we got to take it back. We got to bring it back to the lizards and make sure none of us are profiting from it. In the saga, the entity, the creature, the character that brings it back is the famous Mockingbird, with the help of a few other characters, Iculus and others, Forbin, and initially.
Rutherford the
So,
Brave.
yeah, exactly. Rest in peace. So we incorporated as a nonprofit. We decided, okay, the money's got to go somewhere. Music education was the obvious thing, nonpartisan. We all love music, full circle. It's been a fantastic ride since. It's still entirely volunteer, no paid staff, no office, and we are the Mockingbird. We are bringing these resources back, and we've published 3 editions of a 900-page book about the band that have all sold out. The first 2 were a little phone booky. I take the blame for those. The third, beautiful, huge props to Philip Zerbo and all the people who worked on it. We've done tribute albums and golf tournaments and wine events and art exhibits and all sorts of things to, again, put instruments in the hands of kids and the apparatus around them so that they can learn who they are and learn what music is.
And for folks who don't know, fish.net remains, in my opinion, one of the most vibrant communities in the music scene in any genre on the internet. I have been a member of fish.net for gosh, more than 15 years at this point, since logging in and making a username became a feature. And the site has seen, constant, growth and updates, especially, very recently at the time of this taping. And like Ellis mentioned, this is an all volunteer basis group. These are not people who are in it for the money. And like you'll see in our interview with the Sandbox channel about Widespread Panic coming up, and if you look at our interview with Ween Archive from season 2 or 3, I can't really remember right now, but if you look at those interviews, like they archive and put up the music not to profit from it. The music is copied. The music isn't theirs. Like that's not. But in Sandbox's case, aligning SPD audio to the limited video available from the Mikey Hauser era of Widespread, he's doing a service by reminding people that there was a member of that band who is really, really, really important. And you and I well know at that particular time in history, where, which is, why this, 98 to 2002 when Mikey passed, it was not easy to tape a show with a video camera. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my child.
Right. I tried to take video some shows in '94 and I got shut down. So, anybody doing it in that window was.
Yeah, but all of it just like, yes, but you also then, I mean, you and I also well know like the amount of gear. I mean, check Susanna's interview or the Sandbox channel interview upcoming if you want to, just hear about the sheer size of what that gear is like. You got to bring in the camera, the stand, or you're holding it the whole show, and those things were heavy. And you got to bring 3 or 4 cassettes so you can make sure you have room to record everything. So those videos, like the first one that comes to mind is the video of Widespread doing Joe's Garage, UIC 2001. The way he aligned the soundboard audio that the band released with that video, I think is a real service to Widespread fans. And I think that what Ween Archive does with unreleased Ween songs and refining the audio for us to enjoy, because we don't know if the band's ever going to release them. It's a he doesn't profit off of any, neither of them do. Neither of them profit off of that. They do it out of the sheer love of the music. And again, wanting to spread it out. And, they are in effect, they're essentially kind of each in their own ways a Mockingbird in their own rights, carrying that music to the respective W labeled Blizzard communities of Ween and Widespread Panic.
Right. Yeah. I'm from the Southeast. I was in Virginia and grew up in Georgia and know Widespread well. And it serves not only the fans and the community, I think it serves the band. That sort of thing without limits for every show, with every possible note and whisper of color of what they've produced would be prohibitive to their future. But those sorts of supportive things here and there are amazing for, as you say, reminding us what used to happen and re-engaging new audiences with old ones. And
And Ween until recently, at the time of this taping, was touring. Hope you're doing all right, Diener and Jeaner and the rest of the band. And Widespread, they, and we talk about, I'm not going to spoil the interview coming up, but I will just say, they just put out, at the time of this taping, they just put out 2 albums, Snake Oil King and Hailbound Queen. I absolutely love Snake Oil King. I think it's a phenomenal album, and they're touring heavily. They're around. And they're doing, weekend runs. They were just in St. Augustine at the time of this taping. It's incredible that they've continued to chug along, and it is a credit, I think, in the way that you put it, to the band, because it's not a distraction.
Right. Yeah.
They've clearly been able to move forward without this being a hindrance of any sort.
Yeah. Especially because they're moving forward, and looking backward a bit is part of their story, and it's part of reconnecting with the older fans and bringing those things together.
And I think Mockingbird did something similar. Maybe some of our listeners and readers and viewers aren't aware, but Fish was on hiatus for one brief period and then one slightly longer period, from 2004 to 2009. I first found out about Fish in 2006, and then got really mad when I found out I couldn't go see them. That's another story. I think I've told that story before, but Fish went through the similar hiatus, but Mockingbird did not stop during that hiatus.
No, that was, partly there was extra energy that wasn't on tour. And, what are we going to do now instead of writing about the set lists? And all sorts of things happened. And by the way, I have to say that I loved that you called it a second hiatus. And there's an earlier one that was about 6 months. So maybe that was the third hiatus rather than the permanent breakup, because I did not accept for a moment that was permanent. It was an important step, an important stage, an important statement for them to step away and try to heal and the band to refocus. But I just never believed that it was permanent. As long as they could get back together, I suspected they would. And so anytime on fish.net it said the final show, I changed it to the last show, because the last show is just whatever show they just played, right? So you won't see final show.
You're playing Iculus there a little bit.
I don't think anywhere on fish.net is it called the final show, or was there ever any reference to it that lasted as long as I could see it. So, but a lot of things happened during those hiatuses, and the longer they got people went off tour or didn't go on tour, reallocated resources that they might have used, even if only for a run or two a year. People got married, they had kids, they got real. Some of them cleaned up a little bit, not quite as Wookiee. And that meant some separation from the community. I think that some of the larger venues are not selling out as fast as they once were because people have other life commitments, but it also means, not to be crass about it, but people's pocketbooks and wallets are different. And so there's a different foundation for support for a Backline and Divided Sky and Mockingbird and a handful of other, and I should be clear, Mockingbird is one of just a number of nonprofit volunteer organizations in the fish community and others, Headcount and music as a language.
If we tried to name them all, we'd leave out too many. That's the thing.
I don't want to offend.
Yeah, folks, if you ever feel like helping out, I'm sure there's an organization that'll find a way. And if you're ever looking for one, or if you know of one that should be featured on the show, leave a comment. Let us know.
Yeah. And at many of these shows, there are 4, 5, or 6 tables, and wander around, and there will be something that I hope appeals to the thing that you care about and are worried about in the world, or want to help celebrate. And so that was a time when the not just the financial resources, but the time and other things sort of reorganized. And the 3rd edition of the book was much better. The events that we're putting on now are of a higher stature and a higher return. And it's not that we're not doing other things, but we've been able to diversify the kinds of relationships that we have with donors and with the community. And we doubled the maximum grant size from $5,000 to $10,000 at some point, and sometimes we double that and give 20. We've increased the amount that we give every year, I think consistently every year since we started. It's been an uptick, certainly. Donations really surged in 2020 and 2021. People didn't have anything to do. And they had, despite the dumpster fires going on, some resources and or some empathy, and wanted to make the world a better place. And so donations, not just at Mockingbird, but any nonprofit you ask, support for them has gone down over the past couple of years. And now shit's really getting weird. So who knows what the future of these things are. But yeah, there were those windows where we really got to develop. And fish.net as a website I want to thank Rosemary McIntosh and Dan Hantman and Rob Johnson and other people who ran that until I stepped in and just sort of, again, kept the dam from breaking. It was all text and all static and whatever. And then Adam Scheinberg comes along in 2010, right there in that window, cleans it up. And now, as you mentioned, you log in, you've got to get the statistics for all the shows you've seen. Which songs should you have seen by this point but haven't ranked, and which ones to expect at the next show. And people have met and married and divorced and had kids, and all kinds of life happens through that website. As a sociology professor and as a Fish fan and just as a person, it's been beautiful to see.
And I don't want to compare this to getting married, but we met on fish.net. But
we're renewing our vows right now, baby.
Exactly. Yes. So glad I didn't have a sip of water in my mouth right there. That was hilarious. But here's the thing: is like, you're not the only .netter that's been on Secondhand Talent. I think that's crazy. That there's two places, Heady Wax Fiends and .net, that has actually borne out multiple guests on Secondhand Talent. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I've met so many amazing people on .net. Shout out, just real quick, Brandy Michaels, who's going to be on the show next season, Ink and Brandy. Check her out. And shout out to Reed Mashevsky, who was in season 3 and is one of the most incredible teachers I've ever met. It's been, I remember, as you were saying, about 2011, kind of early 2011, when the relaunch kind of really hit, signing in and making my account, and then getting to pick all the shows that I had been to, and then starting to like count them, and it just felt, and then getting involved in the forum. Shout out to the Good Morning thread. Love all of you. You're amazing. I know I haven't been around in a while, but I do love you all. And
well, okay, but so now I'm going to play your role, because there are some of your fans who don't know what that is. And within the fish.net forum, there are all these things. Fair. There are these sort of micro communities in the forum. There's the Good Morning forum, and there's the group of people who Reed, who you mentioned, did the Netties. He gave awards for sort of annual.
I can't believe my Nettie. Where is my Nettie? I have one. I have one for best meme thread. It was on the table for last season.
Right. Oh. There's this award show that Reed
Hold
did.
on. Talk about it.
And he, Bela Fleck, there were musicians that he would have segments come in and talk about the important work we're doing. There it is. The blobfish, right? Got these actual awards given out. And there's a tight enough community to have an award show with a ton of viewers on YouTube, living it up live the night of. It was, and dressing up for it online. It's so fun and silly and wonderful and beautiful. And there are other micro communities, the live during the show folks. And there's a small contingent that insists on talking about politics. That sometimes gets a little rough, of course, but there are all these sort of offshoots. It's been wonderful.
I don't know if you mentioned this because I didn't have my headphones on, but I mean, there is a thread dedicated, there's a community dedicated to the threads that get closed or shut down by moderators. Like, it gets so meta. Like, but at the end of the day, like, here's the thing: is you also have the option, just like with any social media site, if you don't want to see someone or their content, you can block people. And you can add friends and all that, and private message people. But like, it's not just a single like forum where people just talk like Reddit. It's just a line item list of all these different topics that you can delve into, and you can or start your own conversation. And this little guy right here was one for my Soul Planet meme thread. One of my favorite of which was a picture of Eddie Murphy that said, "Wookin' Panub," on the Soul Planet. Or what was the other one? Is I'm just here for the gangbang on the Soul Planet. Was I'll pop them on the screen so people have some frame of reference. But like it's like we take it so seriously, and it's like Monty Python level silly. Like how and that's the amazing. Like it's so beautiful that it has continued to grow and has continued to, one of the things I love, I've been so busy with, the podcast and life things happening. Every time I visit the forum, there are new people, there are more users. And and when I post, I always get where have you been? How's it going? And it really is a community, and it makes sense that there's this kind of intrinsic connection between .NET and Mockingbird, because I feel like everyone on .NET, like we are the lizards,
Yeah, absolutely. Saving game hens, brother. Yeah,
hey,
but
man.
it's a community of, I think we have maybe 100,000 registered accounts, not say billions like the big boys, but that makes sense given the focus. There are other sites, from one that's routinely called a cesspool, but I think tries to
We don't need to name names. We all know.
Yeah. Through the big boys, like the one that we used to call Twitter, have developed, I think, more darkness than light. And it comes up on FishNet as it comes up on anywhere. It may happen between you and I hope not. And happens, everybody's house at Thanksgiving or whatever. So there's darkness a little bit everywhere when we'd rather not be there. You mentioned the moderators closing threads. That's relatively unusual. There is an up and down thumb process, and that hides some things. So we try to let it be community driven.
Yeah, it's more so like, here's the thing, like there is a lot of latitude. I will qualify that there is a lot of latitude given for what's discussed.
Yeah.
But like I said, the reason a lot of latitude is given is because it's a list of links. You choose, like, it's up to you if you want to go into that forum and read what everybody's talking about in that thread. And in that specific thread, or if you want to look at the one that says, why is, which album do you think is the best, and join that conversation versus any political one. Like, it's up to the user. The mod closing tool, and especially the banhammer, which are used a lot less now than they were in the earlier days, are really for when things get out of hand or personal, because there shouldn't be any room for that. And I am, in the history of the forum, the moderating team has always been very good, in my opinion, about shutting things down before they get too escalated, and even usually before that.
That's much appreciated. They do good, and I should say they, because I don't spend as much time, and that's something we could talk about, is Mockingbird has sort of become this octopus, and I'm far from every arm or more than one or two. But those who are involved heavily in the forum and try to provide some moderation, or at least a connection, have gotten a bad rap, to the point that, we used to put the fish.net, the little beanie graphic, which I should give props to Matt Lawrence for designing decades ago, and is on shirts and hats and stuff. We used to put that and identify the administrators there. They don't want to be identified as, because it looks like they're a bad cop, rather than they're the connection to.
Just real quick, I just want to interject there. Like, folks have asked me all the time, like, oh, why don't you have like a verified check mark on your social media? I was like, because that makes me a target. Like, I don't care. I don't care if I have like, that's not the point. And
Right.
and I appreciate, just also say is that I appreciate that aspect. That perspective.
Yeah. I you can put emoji, graphical emoji, go to emojipedia.com, in your alias anywhere. So my Twitter handle has a blue check mark just as part of my name. I'm not paying Musk $1.
Oh, I should totally do that. That's amazing. Yeah. I actually, I don't use that platform. I really mostly use, like, for social media, Facebook and Instagram, I understand what the reach of those other platforms could do for the show.
Yeah.
And yes, there is some loss being taken, but it's an understood loss because it's a
Yeah.
personal decision.
Yeah.
It just in the same way, like with the forum, like people choose which threads to enter. I get to choose which, platforms I'd like my content to be on, not because I don't want as many people to see the content as possible, but because there are just some platforms I would rather not be on.
Yeah.
So if you
And
look
without,
at our Twitter account and see 0 posts, it's because I just made one to make one.
right. Well, and we certainly had a lot of followers on Twitter and a good support and community. And there's some people like Scott Marks, Biz Archive, who's on the Mockingbird board, who also has a large following there. And I don't want to get into the weeds of it too much, but it was an important discussion to have of maybe we aren't posting there right now. And we tried Blue Sky and Mastodon. We've got a growing community on Threads. I jokingly said we'd be on Truth Social, but after 2 posts, we've abandoned that, thankfully. We should probably be on TikTok, right? You and I should be dancing, and
I refuse. That's my Rubicon. No, that's my Rubicon. I will not. No, first of all, I actually, every single platform at the time of this taping, every single platform, I still say that, every single platform that you just mentioned, I don't think I've ever even opened or used. And yeah, TikTok is my Rubicon. I understand the level of exposure it could bring.
Yeah.
But for various reasons, which I don't care to, go into, I just don't want to be a part of that. Like, I don't want to have to open TikTok every day or, upload things there. Like, it's just not something that I want to do personally. I understand the value it could add, but again, I mean, this Secondhand Talent isn't a nonprofit, but at the same time, I think it's still fair that I'm allowed to pick my battles and about where I want to be.
Yeah. And we both age ourselves a little bit, and our communities probably by sticking with Facebook and Insta. Huge communities, billions of people, lots of traffic. But the traffic and the engagement, likes, comments, shares, has gone down on those in at least some of our communities recently.
Yes.
I'm a professor, and none of my students are on Facebook. I'm a boomer, right? And
man, yeah,
even Insta, they're on Snapchat or something I haven't heard of yet by the time this airs. Right. Yeah. We got to start that. That's what we're calling it too.
By the time this comes out, if Zoop Zop hasn't started yet, it's our fault.
Right.
So you mentioned earlier, the relief effort coming up for the school affected by the Eaton fire in Pasadena, and folks, there may still be some left, but we've been able to send over a little bit over to the Pasadena Humane Society. We send 10% of all sales of Secondhand Talent merch over there to help out with the animals that were rescued by the Pasadena Humane Society affected by the fire. So check out secondhandtalent.com. You might still be able to grab some of these. And I think it's fantastic to, again, like, kind of how you mentioned, and I want to delve a little bit further into this, like doing something where it's needed the most and kind of taking the time to identify that, like, yes, there are, of course, so many areas affected by the devastation of these wildfires, but taking the time to find a school, for Mockingbird to be a conduit or to work with that is not necessarily receiving the same level of assistance as another, I think really speaks to the testament, of and the veracity of, what you all put into it. And I also think, and this is kind of what I want to talk about, I think the way that you go about it is fascinating. that we too can stage a runaway golf cart marathon. And we kind of took that to heart here. We've got a golf tournament, and as folks, despite how he's dressed, Ellis is not a golfer. So how did this come to be, the golf tournament as a way to as a way to arrange funding?
Yeah, so I think golf started with the Hampton reunion shows after Fish took that whatever second or third hiatus. I was standing on the balcony of Motel 6 or whatever the piece of shit is right up the street from the mothership with Marco Walsh, board president at that time. And we saw these two guys walking with golf clubs. And we went immediately down to the office desk at the hotel and asked, where's the golf course? And it was 1.5 miles, 2 miles away. These guys were walking with clubs a mile or two. We're like, all right, we got to do a golf tournament. There are golfers in the scene who want to play during a run.
Oh, so there were fans who were, okay.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay.
They were borderline looks carrying their clubs 2 miles. They're like, well, this is not a cheap sport. There's some resources there. And the tournaments itself are not priced, not budgeted to raise a bunch of money. They're designed to build rapport and connections with people who understand and support what we're doing, or play golf and listen to Fish but have no idea what we're doing. We've had golfers, a number of them now donate 5, 10, some of them $25,000 a year, who we've met through those events. So live events and face-to-face real interactions have been important. And we've done wine tastings. I think that same run was about the time that Pete Mason's fan art was really exploding, and he's now on the board as well, doing art shows and art exhibits with posters and shirts and hats, and maybe sort of an upscaled version of a lot shakedown kind of thing, right? A little more curated and indoors.
I actually had the opportunity to see it firsthand this past summer. At the time of this taping, I was working with the band Bodachita, who were playing at Alpine Valley Resort around the corner from the music theater there where Fish was playing, and there was a fan art show on Saturday inside while we were playing outside, and it was really awesome to see all of my vendor and lot art friends who were kind of hanging out at the resort with us while we were making music and making that happen right before we're all about to go see Fish. And what's crazy about it is that there's a golf course right by there too, right by Alpine, and it's so funny because I actually just saw this connection play out myself in front of my own 2 eyes. And I think one thing that you said that I really want to lean on here is we can talk about fish.net. I will stand on that it is one of the greatest places on the internet, but there is nothing that truly substitutes for true, genuine human connection. And especially when we're dealing with, figuring out a way to, fundraise for this nonprofit that, the people who what are ways that we can connect with people who are already interested in the mission of what we do, the band that we're also interested in, the activities that we're also interested in, and kind of use that to foster connections in the real world that will not just demonstrate because we can say however many registered users there are on fish.net, but it's a whole another thing to show a physical, present, in-person community.
Sure, yeah. And we have, I mentioned maybe 100,000 registered accounts. We have about 4,000 or 5,000 donors over 30 years. And I don't mean to impugn those others. Many of them just haven't heard of what we're trying to do or don't have the privilege of being able to support. So I'm not complaining or griping, but a very small fraction, even of our registered donors, have donated. And there are millions of Fish fans. There's sort of a lot of awareness to get on the table, and those events, and it's easy to manufacture an artificial event, pre-shows, post-shows, extra music, extra concerts, places where you can't really interact and are new to people. So we've done well by creating events that are things people want to do. You put golfers on a golf course and they're ready to listen and to understand and to be relaxed. We, setting aside the inebriating effects of wine, having wine aficionados at an event catered by Dave Beckwith, one of our board members, who is an international sort of vintner consultant and onophile who travels internationally to sort of pair wines with food. I mean, this is his career, to bring that to this community and bring together people who want to share in that high end but different and connoisseured curated experience. Pete Mason's art, that's not just people who are wandering into the show grabbing 2 for $5 and a t-shirt. It's people who are aware of, I don't want to leave an artist out, but one of those 15 artists that people know. And some of those artists have done their own events. They've done great, but having those curated experiences for people who care about something. There's a gentleman in Colorado who's done several years now of a disc golf tournament. There are 3 or 4 people who are yogis who've done yoga events to raise money for Mockingbird. There's a woman in Denver who does an entrepreneurial thing, like let's get sort of business people together and before the run. And by the way, raise some money for Mockingbird and some other things. So reaching people where they are is the right thing to do, and unobtrusive, and giving them an opportunity to, if you ever go on a cruise, there's the cruise and then the daytime excursions, right? And I've always thought Mockingbird and other nonprofits have a real opportunity to develop daytime excursions, right? We should have trail hikes and bicycle rides and whatever the hell it is you do, go create something on the ground on a run. And we'd love to benefit it at Mockingbird, but there are plenty of other places that you could be raising funds for, sort of secondhand talent to the scene, and creating new spaces for people who have the time and the resources, but mostly the interest.
And that's huge. Is the way you put it? Bringing wine aficionados or fish fans to the vineyard, bringing golfers to the golf course, meeting people where they're at, where they want to be, is the linchpin of making these connections, actually forging them, making them work and prosper. And even if, as you mentioned, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 donors over 30 years, but as you mentioned in the beginning of the interview, that it's been constant, an upward curve. And so I don't think there's any shade on anyone through that. I think if anything, it's a testament to the growth of the organization, the fact that it's been nothing but growth, even not in spite of, but almost because of the amount of donors, I think makes it even more impressive.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't mean to sound greedy or unappreciative or ungrateful. It's been amazing. $2.6 million without a staff or an office. It's just incredible that there's been that warmth and support and community in the population. And, the average donation used to be $21, $22 when we started. We were a bunch of ragtag college kids starting this thing. Now we are professors and brokers and lawyers and doctors and whatever else. And the average donation is has an extra zero or two sometimes. There are people who donate $50 a month through a subscription recurring donation. So it is, you're right, it is not a large number, but there's the mantra in the nonprofit world: first you grow the donors, then you grow the donations. And we're still sort of doing both of those things because there are a lot of people who've still never heard of the Mockingbird Foundation. So again, love and appreciate what you're doing. And, sadly, there will be another hiatus where Fish won't be playing 50 years from now, but we hope that the Mockingbird Foundation is still working with fans in the music communities to help put instruments in the hands of kids.
And I think that one of the most important things that I can do with Secondhand Talent is to highlight organizations like Mockingbird, like Backline, like Divided Sky. Again, it's kind of hard to start mentioning them for fear of leaving them out, but so many great organizations doing so many great things. And it's just, again, such a privilege to be able to highlight them and to raise awareness for them. And just a quick final note, super, super, super proud of my friend group. When Steiner and I got married, our charity of choice was Mockingbird Foundation, and my friends and family raised several $1,000s for Mockingbird, which is I am extraordinarily proud of all of you. Thank you all so much. It's just as good as, if not better than a gift, because no matter what, it's a gift for someone, and it may benefit someone for, a ripple in still water can go on for a very, very, very long time. Ellis, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being back on the show. I just absolutely love this conversation. I love everything that Mockingbird is doing, and I cannot wait to see what the future has in store.
Absolutely, man. I feel bad about the wedding. If you didn't get a blender, I think Drew Carey is selling some.
Does it come with a meat stick?
Love you, brother. Thank you so much for all you do. It's been a pleasure being here and an honor to be part of this thing you're doing with Secondhand. It's genius.
It's absolutely just my sincere pleasure to count Mockingbird Foundation amongst the Secondhand Talent family. Folks, this has been Steiner with another episode of Secondhand Talent, and we will see you next Wednesday. And that's a podcast. We did it. All right.
Awesome. That was fantastic, man. All right.